Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday edition of the MSP Initiative Live. Today is May 17th. And just like that, May is more than half over. And the month is just flying by. We'll be in summertime, literally in a couple of weeks. The summer season will kick off here. And then before you know it, we'll actually be at the end of the year. It'll really just be like that. But anyway, lots of stuff going on in technology land. We'll usually do our normal housekeeping in the beginning. And then we'll get into some topics. So as usual, mspinitiative.com under sessions, you'll have this session, every other session in podcast and video format. Right now, the Channel Strong Tour, we call this week 3 of the Channel Strong Tour, which is in Chicago, Grand Rapids, Indy, Lexington, Kentucky, and Nashville, Tennessee is this week. So got you, Darren. So if you're in those areas, or if you're in the next round of cities, which will be, looks like we have June and then July, which is like the Northeast kind of cut into 2 separate weeks. You have Monday through Friday, June 27th through the 30th, Reston, Baltimore, South Jersey, Philly, and then North Jersey. And then we go into like Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and then like kind of right on the bottom of New York there. So that's what we call week 4, week 5, June and July. Then you see week 6, 7, 8 are the back end of the year, September, October, November. So keep kind of watch on this page. If you can join those, just submit your hand on here, throw in a request for an invite, and we will get you out there. But yeah, this tour is going on right now. So watch social. We just did Chicago yesterday and Grand Rapids today, and we will continue on. Well, since Darren is going to be splitting on us early, Darren, I don't know if you, number one, you were out on the road with our friends from PAX 8 last week. Sounds like that went well.
It was great. Yeah. I mean, I think I was on, I don't even know. Did we go on last week or I don't know. I guess not.
There was I think they did Chicago and Minnesota.
Oh, no. I meant, did I talk on this last week? I guess not. No, it was really great.
I think you jumped in just for a little bit.
Their mission briefings, I have to say, having not been participant in those either as an attendee, and this time I was on their panel, which was really nice. It was a good atmosphere. It met a lot of people, and not huge numbers of attendees, but it allowed us to all kind of get to chat, and a good amount of vendors, not overwhelming with vendor presence, and there's a lot of PAX 8 people. They bring a lot of a lot of resources there to talk to and to have available, which was I didn't have any idea they were bringing as many people as they did. So
I'm sure everybody at their organization was interested in getting out. And
I mean, this was the first one they had done since 2019. So and I think everybody thought they went really well. So great weather in Chicago and Minneapolis. I was very impressed. It was awesome. So yeah, if anybody was ever considered doing those mission briefings, they're pretty good.
Awesome. So since you're leaving early, I figured I'd bring up your favorite topic, but this time with like kind of new insight, right?
Okay.
Whoops. All right. So there's a little bit more feedback, right? Channel E to E got some insider knowledge here. And basically, there was a bidding war for that.
Okay. Oh, I had not. By the way, I've not seen this. Is this wow? Wow, interesting.
So there was a bidding war for data, and so Thoma Bravo was absolutely in it, right? And their idea was to acquire data and merge it with ConnectWise. We've been hearing this rumor forever and ever and ever. It just in the end, it didn't work that way. A couple permutations of things happening with ConnectWise. So Thoma Bravo was in there. And a bunch of other people were in there, but they were definitely in there. And basically they backed out once, they were like, everybody was at a $33 per share. And then kind of Insight and who's the investor behind Kaseya kind of said, okay, instead of going down, we'll go up. And they went to 35 per share instead of 33. And that pretty much, you know, Joe says Kaseya was bidding against itself, right? Because they were at $34 a share. And then Thoma Bravo went down to 33 and Kaseya went up to 35.
Wow. All
So
right.
there you go. So it ended up at $35.50 per share. And then there's some speculation here on why did Thoma Bravo reduce its target price for data. So, apparently the potential concern was much of Data's business was built on cloud-connected hardware appliances. These appliances are very popular with MSPs, but perhaps Thoma Bravo believes Data's strength could also be its potential weakness.
I mean, I don't think anybody there would disagree in terms of the core of their business is still in a disappearing market, right? I mean, that's just how it is. So that's actually a very reasonable way to look at it in my mind.
Yeah, and so there was also a timeline that was posted. If you're so intrigued, and I'm sure you are, Darren, there was also a timeline posted on. This thing literally started in November and went all the way down to so started in November 2021 and then went all the way to April 10th, 2022. So kind of does a little bit of a blow by blow on exactly what happened. Interesting, I guess, that they're willing to speak about this entire kind of process, but they're not allowed to speak about anything else.
I keep hearing, I have to go in shortly, but I keep hearing that, I'm having a call with the VP at Datto, I'm having a call with this person, that person, and I'm just like, yeah, I mean, go for it. I mean, I've been offered those opportunities too, but I don't know. Like, you just have to realize, as we've now said so many times, and so many other places too, it's like it's talking to somebody that really can't give you any answers, but you're going through the motions of talking. Like, it's very interesting how people think that by doing that they will be reassured, and well, I had this conversation, and I can't wait for all these conversations that have been had to then, well, we had this conversation, remember on this date we talked and you said this and you said that, and now none of it's happening. Okay. I mean, it's very bizarre.
Yeah. So there were a bunch of people throughout our calls who were like, hey, I'm going to talk to my guy Kaseya. Hey, I'm going to talk to my guy at Datto. And I would love to hear what if people were willing to share what the overarching theme was. But generally speaking, they seem to be playing this game of we don't know what's going to happen, and we can't really talk about it because of Datto being publicly traded. But and then on the other side, they say, oh, but we can talk about how the deal went down. I'm like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So, but DattoCon is officially on. Are we going to see you there, Darren?
It's on my calendar. I don't know if we'll see. I have not made that.
They seem to be, they're on a push to get people to register and come along. So looks like it's happening.
Yeah. I don't know.
You don't seem so convinced.
Can't answer that one yet. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. All right.
What about you?
I mean, listen, it's easy for me to get there. I can just drive. I don't even need to get a plane.
That's true. Yeah.
So I probably will be there.
It could be interesting. Yeah.
Well, I am. I'm interesting from what way? If the deal isn't done, I can't imagine that somebody from Kaseya is going to be up on a stage talking.
So is there any chance of the deal being done by then? That's the question. Do we know what that timeline actually is? Because I haven't really seen that anywhere. I could have easily missed it, but I'm wondering, there was I think a CRN article that the deal had to be done by November. However, there is an extension option until April of 23. Okay.
So, I mean, could it be done by September? I guess it could. The deals, I guess the documentation says that it should be done by November unless both sides agree to an extension, which will go to April.
Okay. So yeah, it would then in theory, it would just be business as usual,
Yeah.
and, there would be,
So business as usual means Darren will be there. That's what it sounds like.
I don't know. We'll see. We shall see.
Yeah. So non-committal over there. It's
Very
unusual for you.
non-committal at this point. Very non-committal.
So,
I'm sure a lot of people, I think it'll be really well attended in general though, because they did put on one of the premier events. So I think for that reason alone, you'll have a lot of people going, whether they're sticking around or not sure, or even more so because they're not sure, So
yeah.
it'll be a successful event in that regard.
Okay. Well, I know you're only on for a couple more minutes, and I've unmuted everyone who's on. They can talk, but this next one is interesting. So an IT admin, so an internal IT admin, not necessarily MSP, an internal IT admin wipes their employer's databases before he walks out the door and gets 7 years in jail.
Wow.
What do you think about that? Cost them $30,000 to recover it. And then obviously they're saying that there was indirect damage up to, across their business. So we never, the only time we've ever heard of this, right, was an MSP down in the South who refused to provide the Office 365 information for, it was like a Chamber of Commerce because they hadn't paid their bill. And then they ended up trying to go through the local sheriff's department because I'm sure it was in an area where they didn't have regular police departments. There was the sheriff, and dude ends up going into a criminal process for they're saying not providing access to their systems, but then again they didn't pay their bill. Here it's a little bit different, but it just goes to show you that if the IT stuff doesn't go the way you want, it may not even be a lawsuit. It may actually be jail. What do you think about that?
You have to proceed carefully on how you do or not do those things, right? I don't know. I'd have to learn more about that situation, but I mean, I think that there needs to be some examples set for how, what behavior is tolerated and what's not. So
sure.
I
get it.
Yeah.
Brian, Walter, you're on the line. Would love to hear if you guys have any thoughts about this story, right? I mean, it's very interesting that, in IT land, you always think, hey, mistakes happen. You don't always think that it's a bad person doing a bad thing, but, it sounds like prosecutors out there are willing to take people to task on criminal charges if they do major damage. Nope. These guys are just hanging out, thinking about it. Well, it's definitely something to think about because let's extrapolate that for a second. Let's say you have a downstream employee, right, that works for you. You're an IT services provider. And let's say they do something malicious. They could be subject to, something criminal here, if you use this standard. And then could you potentially be open to something criminal because they work for you while they were doing this quote unquote bad thing? Well, it's not a far fetch, right? And I think that people have to prepare for that. You got to make sure that your employment agreements are very tight, right? And you got to make sure that sometimes it's hard to tell, right? People interview well, but maybe you got to go deeper into background checking. Maybe you have to, set scenarios in your contracts with your clients for that potential scenario to occur, right? Because then, you want to preempt something like that from happening. So here we go. Walter does chime in and text. Thanks, Walter. Says the business will be held liable, always the scapegoat. Yeah, you're right. I think you're right. I think the business will be held liable. The question is, liable could be civilly, which we all know. No problem, Walter. You're grabbing a bite. Could be civilly, but now, criminally, right? You got to defend yourself, right? Defending yourself costs money, costs time. This could be a PR problem, right? So it's definitely something to be considered, right? And you really need to think about that because, you never think that when you bring people on board, this scenario is real. Well, guess what? here it is. So we had that one from what I think it was 2019, right for the pandemic, with the example I gave you with the MSP and the local chamber of commerce, and what seemed to be maybe a little bit more suburban rural area. But I know we've had our friend Brad Gross on talking about that for a little bit way back when, but he actually intervened or tried to intervene in the case, or like write something to the court, right, in order to try and explain how this isn't a criminal thing. But the problem that I find, and obviously over time, younger and younger people kind of who decided to take that as their profession, right, the legal profession, get into positions like a judge, right, either at a municipal level, at a county level, maybe even a federal level, right? Like, it takes time for people to kind of mature through their industry, and like that younger generation who grew up with technology getting into those chairs and behind those benches. In my opinion, a lot of the people in those roles now, they're just not computer savvy enough to really understand what the hell's going on. And so that creates a burden on the person that's fighting through this, right, to try and take things and make them into plain English. So something to think about, folks. I mean, we rarely spend time thinking about, could this end up as a criminal thing? But if somebody wants to push the agenda and go far enough, it could. And we always hear the analogies of, well, what's the difference in somebody hacking into your computer systems than breaking a window or picking a lock to get into your building? The difference is one's in a filing cabinet and one you could get to, over the wire, right? But is there, could you equate these two? We talk about, with the current situation overseas, right, in Russia and Ukraine, they're saying, hey, a cyber attack is just as equal to what they call kinetic war, right? Bombs and missiles and grenades. Okay, well, if somebody takes that literally, right, and they're in a position where they're in the legal system, what's stopping them from using that that analysis, right, to equate what happens online versus what happens in the real world, and putting those two together? So I think that this is the beginning of what could be a larger problem, and I just think that everybody needs to be cognizant of that, and maybe take some time to think about who they're working for and who's working for you, and make sure that you're in good place. Now, I'm sure people who work for schools and people who work for government agencies and people who work for whatever, right? Different industries have different requirements, and you have to maybe get your people background check. Like if you're working for a school, right, you got to go through like a child abuse check. You got to go through a background check. You got to go through stuff. I'm sure if you're working for a government agency, there's like an FBI background check, right? Like, I'm just throwing scenarios out there. So there's certain areas now where your people do have to go through some sort of extended check, maybe more than what you would do in an employment background check. But hey, how do you catch this, right? How do you catch people from doing bad things before it goes too far? So security, I'm sure if we ask the Matt Lees of the world, they're like limit access, audit credentials, that kind of stuff. But you have the time. I guess you have to make some. So moving on to the next story that I saw was interesting. Microsoft's channel chief, right? This is the guy that, was kind of behind the Microsoft's channel efforts, who have been with the company here for 24 years. As the CRN article says he's out, resigned, kind of with not very much notice. And we're like, okay, well, Microsoft really, like, we don't even interact with these people, right? So what's the big deal? I don't know. It's just interesting. The guy literally, with very little notice left. They say they're going to install his replacement at Microsoft Inspire, July 19th through the 20th. Is Microsoft Inspire in person this year? Let's see. See if I can spell right. Microsoft Inspire 2022. Will be virtual again. I just read this. Three, yeah. Will be virtual again. Well, that stinks. Okay. Will be virtual again this July. But their channel chief decided to resign pretty much with no notice. I say either, I'm speculating here, guys, right? Either guy has a personal problem in his life and he had to leave, but he was there for 24 years. Why wouldn't he have the ability to take a leave of absence, something like that? Or maybe it was a lot of pressure, right? With the recent partner program changes that were installed, with the recent NCE that was installed, which I believe is still undergoing changes. I know they haven't been very well advertised, but these two things, right? These two major things probably didn't make it easy to do that job. So Brian, Bruce, Matthew, Walter, you're all here. You all can unmute. You can join the conversation if you want. But I'm going to tell you that I don't think a lot of the Microsoft channel, like NCE was forced a pricing change, right? Everybody got the message, either very late or somewhere early on in the process. The scoring of the Microsoft Partner Program, that really doesn't come into effect until 2023. So there's time to catch up on the changes, but effectively they're giving everybody a score out of 100 possible points. So, go back to your school days, right? Not A, B, C, D. We're doing, percentages, right? 1 out of 100. That's the way I always had it. I never did the A+, A- thing. But anyway, so if you don't hit at least a 70, which from where I came from is the minimum you need to be passing, you're not going to be a Microsoft partner anymore. You're not going to have any Microsoft entitlements. You're not going to have any NFR software. You're not going to have any free Office 365 licensing, and you're not going to get a discount on Microsoft software or subscriptions. Bruce, you unmuted. What do you have to say? No, Bruce got scared. That's okay, Bruce. Thanks for jumping in, buddy. I think this is a major change. And I think people at Microsoft may not be 100% behind it. I don't know that for sure. I know the people out here on the street and at IT service provider MSP land probably are not 100% on board. And I think the problem is for Microsoft, who claims they have over 400,000 partners. Let's make that make sense for a second. There's approximately between 80 and 125,000 managed services providers, depends who you talk to, worldwide. But Microsoft claims to have over 400,000 Microsoft partners. Well, because Microsoft partners could be CRM people, they could be financial systems integrator people, they could be software developers, or they could be IT services providers, or they could be kind of agents, right? Who sell through marketplaces, stuff like that, right? 400,000 partners. If you remember going back, let's call it 2 years ago, Microsoft tried to remove the Action Pack and the free software that you get as part of what is now Gold and Silver and Action Pack. And they thought that that was going to be a huge revenue climb, right? And then there was a massive pushback and they're like, we're going into our annual partner conference. We'll just reverse course on this, right? So this is the softer, longer approach, right? Hey, we're going to score everyone. And if you don't meet the minimum of our acceptable score, we're going to remove them anyway, right? That's how we're going to get you. And then just going to drag this out and then put some sort of context to it. So what does that mean? A lot of, so far the people who have really gone into it, a lot of people are saying that most of the score is weighted against new revenue. What do I mean by weighted, right? Back in the day, if you went to college, you would have a syllabus, right? And part of your syllabus was, hey, a certain percent of your grade is going to come from tests, and a certain percent of your grade is going to come from the exam at the end of the period, and then a certain percentage of your score is going to come from homework, and then maybe there's a project or something, group project, depending on the course. And here's 100% of your possible score. So Microsoft's saying that the majority of their score, or so people have said so far, is on new growth, not existing customers that you're servicing today. I'm talking about net new that you haven't been dealing with moving forward. Brian says, or they're going to blame this guy for all the changes and rescind it. Yeah, I got you. So I hope they rescind it, but let's line this up real quick. I just want to make sure we're all thinking about this. So under NCE, they made it hard or practically they've stopped the ability, if you follow the rules to the letter, to take an existing partner or existing subscription who's already through another Microsoft partner and migrate it mid-period to somebody else. So if you adopt a new managed services client who's already coming from another managed services client, or maybe they bought separately through CDW or some third party, or maybe even to Microsoft directly, and if they're in mid-term of whatever they agreed to, you really can't move them and get credit for that net new to you, to your company. So they've already made that part harder. And now they're saying, oh, by the way, if you don't add enough net new people, as well as maybe taking some of Microsoft online exams to specialize in an area, right? And they've created these categories for you. Then you don't have enough to meet your minimum score. So like they've now taken two things and put road bumps in front of you in order to even comply with the new system. So what's going to happen to the people who are like, hey, I got a block of customers that I've been servicing for a really long time. And now if I lose my partner status, it might be harder for me to support that customer. And I'm not making any residual off it, although it was very small to begin with. And I'm going to have to start paying for my internal use because I don't get the internal use licenses and software that I was getting before. Sounds like a hard pill to swallow, guys. But the reason I go down this road is for the people that have been around Microsoft land for a long time internally, right? And this guy who just resigned was there for 24 years. Clearly that probably isn't going well internally. I don't know. I think that that's the case. I could be wrong. I don't know for sure, but I would say that guy probably was like, no, I'm out. Not doing this anymore. This doesn't make sense. Just a thought. But hey, there's 60,000 people working at Microsoft. I'm sure they'll figure it out and put another person in place. But anyway, while I was able to Google it up, I guess mark your calendars because Microsoft Inspire, the annual Microsoft conference, which used to be in person, and when it was something like 17 or 18,000 people would show up in person to this Microsoft conference. They would move it around like everyone else. Looks like that is virtual again, July 12th and 13th. Hope you're not on vacation, or you could just dial in. So we'll see what comes out of it. We'll see what comes out of this year's Microsoft Partner Conference. So that was another topic I had. And now this one. Hate to bring it back to technology land, especially in our sandbox, but ConnectWise Control, formerly Screen Connect, was used by bad actors, according to Blackpoint Cyber. So a couple of weeks ago, we had Threat Locker coming out saying, hey, we think these systems were exposed to do bad things. I don't know if they ever put out an update to that. I think I read somewhere that they were going to put out documentation to explain what they found, because there's a little bit of trifling over here in MSP land where the other security vendors maybe not agreed at the time. But it looks like Blackpoint, who's pretty well known in the MSP sandbox, says, hey, these guys used what looks to be trial versions, right? Somebody could go in to sign up for a Screen Connect or ConnectWise Control trial, and then somehow use that to deliver malicious software. I don't know. So I think everyone who's used any of the ConnectWise products could agree that probably ConnectWise's strongest product is Control. And that's actually the one they bought, not made themselves, not coded themselves. But this says that if it can reset on me. This says if a company or individual believes ConnectWise Control was used in an exploit or their instance has been exploited, please report it. They give you a website here to report abuse of the ConnectWise software. Interesting little form here. So maybe this was more than just trial accounts, right? So let's see what Blackpoint says. Blackpoint's cyber points to increased sophistication of bad actors use legitimate software to attack MSPs and their customers. The issue Blackpoint brings up is not unique to ConnectWise Control. Any remote access application can be exploited the way Blackpoint described. So let's just go backwards and see. ConnectWise comes out and says, we hate to see any software products used for malicious purposes, but unfortunately, remote control tools can be used for this purpose all too frequently, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then Blackpoint says, in each of the identified cases, Blackpoint observes that the first software package deployed post-breach was an enterprise capability often used MSP called Screen Connect, also known as ConnectWise Control. Threat actors use this as a persistent mechanism to keep access to the network. Okay, so basically, I don't know the exact circumstances, but they're saying, hey, this was used. So a blog post that is referenced here says Blackpoint also singles out Soft Perfect network scanner tool to launch cyber attacks. That's interesting. That's supposed to be a freebie tool, right? To do like a quick network scan. It's kind of crazy to think that that's being used as like freemiumware with maybe some bad packages in there, it sounds like. While on their phone, bad actors tried to install the remote access software to gain access to PC, but it was blocked by our whitelisting. Being determined, they found out were blocked by whitelisting, and they identified which remote access software is whitelisted. Next, they installed a copy of the software we use and pointed it to their command and control servers, which compromises the protection of the whitelisting. Okay, so they're saying this could have been one of those schemes, right, where somebody hits a website and says, hey, call us. We're Microsoft. Your system is got a problem, right? And it's like somebody in a call center overseas. And then they're effectively utilizing off-the-shelf software to remote into these people's computers that wouldn't get blocked by because they would be considered okay or good to use software to access these people's computers. That's another scenario that it looks like they said. But then here we go. Huntress, see, there's a disagreement in MSP land. No evidence that there has been an uptick in bad actors using ConnectWise Control to launch attacks. Okay. From Huntress's perspective, this is actually a non-story. It can only speak to the data we've seen. So it was interesting when all these guys kind of disagree with each other, right? The only time they agreed with everybody was, or when they all agreed on the same thing, was during the Kaseya situation last July. Very interesting. So then they go in and just say, hey, what are some best practices, right, to protect yourself? So this is very interesting, right? And you can read the rest of the article if you want to go check it out. But very interesting now how two things come out of this article, right? Now, again, feel free to jump in and chat, guys. But two things come out of this article, right? One, what happens when you have security software in place and the tools that you use to run your IT services business is being used in a bad way? It kind of echoes the beginning conversation we had about what happens if somebody within your organization does something bad that results to what could amount to a criminal act, right? And then they get charged with it. What happens to you? So in the same token, so you have all this security software, could be SentinelOne, could be ThreatLocker, it could be Blackpoint, could be CrowdStrike, whatever, right? Pick your tool. Now what happens when that tool is being used in a malicious way, right? And then your security tools say, hey, I'm not doing anything here because I know this to be whitelisted, known, good working software, so I'm not going to stop it. It's another avenue, guys, right? I mean, again, not the Matt Lees of the world, but it's definitely something to consider when, we're all using, a lot of people in MSP land are using the same software packages, right? So if you can go sign up for a free trial and then use that in a malicious way, that could get past all of the front door things that you have in place to stop bad things from happening. I mean, no differently than, a lot of people have been using geofencing for years, right? You go into your firewall, you say, hey, block all traffic from China or Russia or whatever, foreign country. Then what do? They go sign up for a hosting account and pick your favorite provider, Azure, AWS, web hosts, whatever, GoDaddy in the US. And then they use that US IP address to get past your geofilter. They didn't talk to anyone. They just put a PayPal account or a credit card number in, and maybe it was even a free trial, which in this case, they were referencing as something that could have happened here with this ConnectWise Control, right? You sign up for a free trial, didn't cost them anything to get 15 days. 15 days is eternity in IT land. Bada bing, bada boom, right? Now they got past your this example, geofiltering, right? So I don't know, guys. I mean, keep in mind that a lot of the security services that are helping you, the SOC as a service, SIEM as a service, stuff like that, they're seeing things kind of after they've happened, right? I mean, it's great to catch something in the act, or it's great to block something from coming in. But like a lot of these retroactive things happen after maybe some damage has been done, right? So you're a little bit, it's like the fire alarm going off, right? By the time the fire department gets there, is there any building left to save? You hope, right? So does that mean that all the security software that everybody's selling doesn't, is just become a little less valuable? I don't know. I still argue, and I'd say most would agree, that the biggest security problem is what's in between the keyboard and the chair. Can you train your end users good enough to not fall for, the scam, the trap, right? I love the ones where like you hit an ad, like an approved ad on like a major website, and then it does like a full screen, on your computer and says, hey, it starts like flashing something at you, right? Hey, your computer has been, attacked. Please call this number. You would hope that somebody wouldn't actually call the number, right? Just like you would hope that somebody doesn't call and say they're from the IRS. You start giving them your bank account information over the phone. But hey, it happens. And yeah, I think this is going to continue. I mean, is this, love those calls after they call the number. Hey, yeah, I called this number. Can you help me? It's already too late, right? Yeah, exactly. Exactly what you're saying there, Walter. Like by the time they call you for help, they're like, oh, by the way, I called the number for Microsoft. And you're like, wait a minute, what did you do? Not good. But yeah, Walter, I totally agree. So my thought to you is just putting up a landing page saying, hey, report suspicious activity to us enough, right? I mean, you got to give, they're trying to make their software easy to buy, right? It's like the Amazon approach, right? You don't want to talk to a human being. You just want to go and buy. And obviously that's been working, right? People buy a lot of stuff on these like zero touch e-commerce sites because it's easy. The easier it is, the faster they buy. Okay. Walter says, but for insurance purposes, they are notifying people. Okay. All right. Or for legal purposes. All right, Walter, I got you, buddy. I hear you. I mean, my point to you is, you need to be aware of these things. And, I believe there are MSPs out there starting to take the zero touch approach, right? And we talk about Electric a lot because they're the guys that hit that unicorn status as an MSP, being valued as a software company. But there should be checks and balances, right? To approve trials probably somewhere along the way, rather than just give anyone a free trial. Don't talk to them until their trial is about to end. And then you pick up the phone or you send them an email and say, hey, are you interested in buying? Unfortunately, that is a little bit more of what's happening than not. That's the only way to stop free trials from products being used as bad. That's, in my opinion, that's the only way. You got to qualify people for a trial before they get approved. But then it takes the speed of somebody who's interested in buying in it, and it slows it down, which I know the salespeople of the world hate to do. But hey, if you find out your software is being used in a negative way, maybe you should consider that. I don't know, just 2 cents there. Next one that I thought was interesting, I wanted to bring up. So Google Cloud, competitor to Microsoft 365 and Office 365, releases a new open source security software for customers. And then says for resellers, it makes that product they're offering more attractive. So Google Cloud, right? We're talking about also the competitive solution to AWS and Azure, right? So they said last summer they spent $10 billion to improve cybersecurity across the internet. Thank you very much. Then they said with the recent 650% surge in open source software supply chains attacks. All right, so 3 digits and they're kind of high, 650%. So now as a result, Google's now making available security software initially developed for its own internal use and software that has been thoroughly tested and vetted by Google. Assured open source is what it's called. The initiative makes available an array of open source security code curated by Google and aimed at helping big and small companies interested and beefing up their security. Another initiative called Security Foundation Solution is a pack of a specific cloud-related open source products developed and tested by Google. Other initiatives offer customers on ramp, that's a sales term, on ramp, start implementing zero trust security and other measures to combat security attacks. So this is basically we're sharing our security magic. Well, let me ask you a question. If you're sharing your security magic as an open source tool, okay, and you're trying to do that to literally kind of Tesla things, right? Hey, I'm giving out my battery technology to anybody who wants it, but we're also using it too. But you guys can start manufacturing batteries too. Here's all the technology. You don't have to figure it out on your own. Here you go. But when you give access to all that open source code, doesn't the bad guy also have access to the same code? And can't they easier figure out how to bypass the security solution once they're able to dig through it and figure out how it ticks? I must be missing something here, guys. Like it just does, to me, it almost doesn't make sense why, unless they're not just opening it up to the world and saying, here it is. Anybody who wants it, hit download here. And they're trying to validate people who get access, right? But if one guy gets through, then it's all for nothing, no? I don't know. I just, it comes back to the last conversation, right? If you're using good software in a bad way, and if you're using open source software in a bad way, don't you end up in the same bad place? So I don't know. It's Google. I would think that I would be concerned if I am inside of Google being their security, kind of chief, and I find out the stuff that we implemented to secure our internal systems is now out there for the bad guys to comb through. And they always say for every one good guy, there's 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 bad guys. I don't know. Definitely something to think about. And definitely something I would think twice before I give somebody an open source product to secure their system. Just me, I really would, but to each their own. We talked a little bit about Datto earlier, but I noticed this, right? So before they even talked about their merger, acquisition, whatever you want to call it, I think it's officially being called an acquisition. And it says, hey, sales were up to $171 million in Q1. So that's pretty good. I don't want to go into all the other stuff, right? Because we talked about it 1,000 times, but just looking at the numbers, right? The subscription revenue of the $171 million is $160 million. So that just goes to show you that like the majority of their revenues are reoccurring, up from 135.6 million. All right. So that just show device revenue of 9.5 million was up from 8.4 million. Right. So obviously we talked about the Channel EDE article earlier about why Thoma Bravo would back away from the deal. Right. They were right there. They went down to $33 a share, and then Insight and Kaseya went up to 35.50 from 34. So, but this is the concern, right? If they're the device part, right? That was in that article, but it just goes to show you, right? Revenues are up, and this was before the acquisition was. These earnings were before that was announced. So, still doing a lot of business. But maybe to Wall Street, not the growth that they're looking for. But yeah, they're doing well, guys. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I think we continue to watch how that goes. And Darren says, hey, whether I go to DattoCon in September will determine if the acquisition is done or not. Okay, I think that conference is happening, right? I think DattoCon in DC is absolutely happening. Whether the acquisition gets done or not, it's really up to you. I almost want to go. I mean, I'll definitely be there. But if I was somebody considering and going, and I'm not advertising this event for anyone, just talking out loud. Anybody ever remember back in, what was it, 2017 was the first IT Glue conference in Phoenix? Anyone remember that one? And the big thing they were advertising was the panel of the Titans. And it was Arnie Bellini and Fred from Kaseya. It was Michael George from Continuum at the time. It was Austin McCord from Datto, and Gary Pica and Chris Day from IT Glue. Remember that one? Battle of the Titans. By the way, it was recorded. There's a video. If you need a copy, let me know. I'll send you the link. Kind of, sort of, almost what, like, I think Datto is either going to be like the final hurrah, right? For all those Datto people, kind of like the last party, right, on the way out, maybe, before the new regime takes over. Or it could be everybody's going to watch. It's like NASCAR, right? I've never been a NASCAR guy. Like, kind of go to wait for the crash, right? Is this going to be good? Is this going to be bad? Is Fred going to show up? I don't know. But I definitely think DattoCon will be well attended for that reason. And whether the acquisition gets done by September or even November, guys, like, I know a lot of people were saying, will it get done before the end of the year? There's probably a good chance, but remember, there's a chance this thing, like I said earlier in the call, that I think it will. I think it will likely be extended, right? I think there's going to be some tightening up, right? And I think that they have the ability in the deal to extend it to April of 2023. So that gives them another December, January, February, March. It gives them another like 5 months, right, to figure it out. And who knows, right? I mean, you saw, not to say that this is totally parallel. You saw like Elon Musk backed away from the Twitter deal for a minute because he was saying that the percentage of fake accounts, right? And I'll pull this up for you if you didn't already see it. The percentage of fake accounts could be higher than their SEC filing, right? So let me share this just to make sure I'm sourcing this correctly, right? Elon Musk says $44 billion Twitter deal can't proceed until the CEO proves the platform has fewer than 5% fake accounts. Okay. And then he says, my offer was based on Twitter's SEC filings being accurate. So if it turns out that, oh, here we go. Musk said Tuesday, 20% of the accounts were fake or spam accounts, 4 times larger than the 5% figure. Okay. So like, there's due diligence, guys, right? Like, they got to go through, make sure everything's on the up and up. They want to make sure these numbers that are being reported are accurate. And, that could delay things, right? Who knows? I'm not saying there's anything nefarious here, but I'm just saying, like, a lot of things can slow down, speed up the deal. So I'm just bringing this up because it's like literally, came out within the last couple of days. They're going to go through the deal, but I don't think this thing is done by September. I think September's early. The initial deadline is, I think, middle or late of November. So it's around that IT Nation time, for those guys that like to hit that up at the end of the year. And remember, Kaseya's conference, I don't know if anyone, their regular Kaseya Connect conference, I think, is June 20th through the 23rd, right? Yep, in Vegas. So that deal is definitely not done. I'll share this in case anyone's really interested in doing that. Awesome. Talk soon, Walter. So for anyone that would be really interested in going, right, June 20th to the 23rd, this is Kaseya's conference in Vegas. They have, for our international people that may be listening to this, there's Europe, there's Asia. Look at this. I'm going to send this call to the graveyard there. Okay. Sorry about that, guys. So they got Europe, they got, the Vegas one, and they got something probably in Australia, right? Sydney here. But the big one is, so like none of this Datto Kaseya deal doesn't get done before any of these conferences, right? So I think, I don't think, I'll have to go back and talk to Darren offline. I don't think anyone should be not going or going to Datto based on that. I think people are going to go no matter what. And funny enough, this is the Datto's conference, which was really started with Rob Ray. Their first conference was in DC, right? So they've kind of gone around the country, and now they're back in DC, kind of to, clear out this era of Datto. So should be interesting. I'll be there. I'm sure many others will be there too. And I bet you $1, just because it wouldn't be a bet otherwise, unless somebody comes up with a better one. I bet you $1 that Darren will be there too. We'll see how it goes. So, I mean, outside of MSP land, right, there are other stories going on, right? So one of the things was, and I've been following it for a little bit of time for the people that, are obviously Microsoft land, which like majority of us are, Windows 11 is not going well. Is anybody following that? Windows 11 is like going down in, like people have literally gone to 11 and then come back off of 11. So they're actually going backwards now in utilization of like number of deployed machines out there running Windows 11 than up, from even a couple months ago. So I wonder what's going on with that. I guess people are like, like we're just going to ride Windows 10 until we have to. Remember, Windows 10, let's see, Windows 10 end of life, let's see, is in 2025. So you got time, right? October. So Microsoft continued to support Windows 10 until October 14th, 2025. But it's very interesting that people have gone to 11 and then come back off, right? I don't know how many of you have tried to standardize on 11, but something's clearly not going well if the numbers are going down. And on another front, since I happened to just run into this as I was looking for that one specifically, not that I'm like literally watching every time a Patch Tuesday comes up, but heads up, if you're on auto patching, you may want to turn that off for a minute because this is, what is it? Yesterday's Microsoft patch, authentication errors tied to Windows Active Directory and domain controllers. So, oops. Looks like there's a workaround, but I may want to wait for this to get cleared up, or push out this registry change to disable certificate mapping check. But this could be an ouch. So I guess this is where it comes to auto patching may not be the answer. You may want to actually test this or stay a little bit behind, which I know the security people were like, oh, always get the most up-to-date patches, but I can imagine that being a bad day for your service desk if somebody's calling in saying they can't authenticate to everything because that's not working. Thank you, Microsoft. In fun news, it looks like in 2024, Nintendo, going into fun news here on the tail end. New Nintendo console for 2024 could be the Switch 2. So heads up out there, gamers. Looks like in let's call it Christmas for 2024, 2 years from now, you could be buying the next gaming console. So there you go. I thought that was interesting. I mean, I'm not a big gamer. I know I just bought somebody for Christmas a Switch with all the games preloaded, but yeah, 2024 new Nintendo gaming console. I'm sure people will jump on that when it's out. And then the last one I will give you on the way out the door is there was a leak of the iPhone, the next edition of the iPhone. And I think they kind of came out before they were expecting to. I think maybe it may have been a snafu internally, or maybe they just did it on purpose. Who knows? But the new Apple design for the Apple 14 looks like everything is going to USB-C. All right. So the lightning cable may have seen its end on this next version of the iPhone. I mean, obviously older versions of the iPhone will be around for a while, but it looks like everything's moving to USB-C. All right. So that's like kind of the oval with like the little thing in between instead of the lightning cable. So that's very interesting as the world kind of moves to USB-C. And I'm obviously over time, it's becoming more and more popular. Obviously, Europe has kind of forced manufacturers to adopt USB-C, they mentioned here in the article. So that may have a lot to do with it. But the Lightning port may finally be out the door. And they also said that it looks like the iPhone 14 will have more of a curved design. There won't be a bezel anymore, which I think they may have cleared up in the last version of the iPhone, but you can see here, look at the 13 Pro with the bezel at the top, right? And then look at the 14 Pro, which, kind of just cuts out the camera and the micro and the speaker and microphone. More RAM, better screens, always the case, faster processor. But it looks like the big thing to be concerned about is that the iPhone Lightning cable, I'm going to have to recycle them all, throw them in the trash, go to USB-C. I know my Surface has a USB-C built in. I know a lot of the newer computers do too, but that could be good, right? So you don't have to go and buy proprietary cables anymore. Apple was really the only one really pushing the Lightning cable, but it just gave them accessories to sell like everyone else. And for as much as of a Microsoft guy that I am, iPhone guy, it just runs. I know Ken Patterson over at PAX8, I always make fun of him for his Android, although he finally got a new phone. Thank you. But because his phone was definitely not giving him a good run there for the last, at least last year. But yeah, I'm an Apple guy. It runs. And I usually skip a generation, probably like everyone else, except for the people who pay for every time they come out with the new iPhone, I don't have to wait in line. You're sending it to me plan, right? But hey, to each their own. You cancel your Hulu or Netflix subscription and get your iPhone subscription instead, or you can do both. So anyway, keep watch on mspinitiative.com. Keep watch on the Channel Strong tour that's happening right now. They're in Grand Rapids today, and then Indy, Lexington, Kentucky, and then Nashville to close out the week. Stay tuned. We're in the middle of doing some party planning, right, for some upcoming MSP community block parties. And we haven't formally announced them. I'm sure you could guess where some of them will be, but we'll be doing some more fine tuning on some of our plans before we put them out there. But stay tuned. And hey, keep back here. Tuesdays and Thursdays, 1:00 Eastern time, or just download them as a podcast and watch them online, mspinitiative.com, or in your favorite podcatcher. Thanks, everyone. Catch you on Thursday.